Good morning, my friends. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide you context in the war in Ukraine. It is Tuesday, 19 November 2024. It is 1,000 days today since the war began, and it feels kind of like this. Here's a 1,000-day calendar. February 24th, February 24th, February 24th. February 24th, February 24th, February 24th, February. This is what Ukrainians are feeling day over day. Little trip down memory lane. Putin said that 3 days, and then it's been 1,000 days. Putin called it a special military operation. And yet Russian society has been mobilized for a protracted war. Now, they're not mobilizing officially, but they're doing it quietly, surreptitiously, behind the scenes. They're working at it. People feel it. There's no desire to infringe on the interest of Ukrainians, he said. Yet Ukrainian lives, liberty, identity are all being targeted. That's the reality of what's going on 1,000 days into this horrible, awful war. 1,610 Russians off the battlefield day over day. 17 tanks, 33 armored fighting vehicles, 46 artillery systems, 120 vehicles and fuel tanks. Now that's 1,610. Little pop quiz. Is that high or low? Well, it's high, but it's not in the top 10. The top 10, number 10 of the highest days would have been 1,630, so it's really close to the top 10. Okay, Ministry of Defense put this out, 11,370 Russian personnel lost during the last week. This is the highest weekly number since the invasion began. So that tells you what it's like on the battlefield. Okay, here are the losses that Andrew Perpetua could identify for the 17th. Today's the 19th. He's a few days backlog. Look at it. It's about 3-1. Full page of Russian and that with Ukrainian. Like, wow. That's so, again, that's just gauging what the fighting is like or how intense things are. Sergei Sumileny put this out, a reminder regarding today. It's not 1,000 days of war. It's 1,000 days since the world has recognized it. Right. That's correct, because it's 3,925 days since the war actually started back in 2014. And because the world didn't recognize it then, because Russian aggression wasn't checked then, it kept growing and festering and metastasizing, and it led us to where we are now, where Putin's talking about changing his nuclear doctrine because we didn't do anything. Russian drones hit a dormitory last night, killing at least 9, including an 8-year-old. And that's the kind of thing that happens day over day. Ukraine's Air Force down 51 out of 87 Russian long-range UAVs last night. On the night of November 19th, 2024, Ukrainian armed forces, in coordination with other defense forces, struck the arsenal of the 1046th Logistics Center near Krakow, Bryansk Oblast. Now, this is confirmed. Now, but here's Kursk, and this is where ATACMS are clearly authorized. Bryansk isn't that far, but it is a legitimate ammo dump. Ukrainian armed forces carried out their first strike in the border areas, according to RBC Ukraine, with Russian territory with ATACMS. It looks like it was really ATACMS. And okay, now Gerdes, didn't you just say yesterday in this video that if you read the fine print, it looks like it's only legitimate targets are Kursk? Well, that's what all open sources were saying. Clearly, it's for Kursk. Maybe it will be for somewhere else, but clearly it looks like it was only said for Kursk. That's where we are. Local authorities denied any damage despite the video evidence showing explosions at the 67th GRAU Arsenal, a facility that has been targeted twice before. Now, it's been targeted twice before, I believe, with just regular drones because they weren't able to use the ATACMS before. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, Putin signed a new Russian nuclear doctrine today. Peskov said that potential adversaries should understand the inevitability of retaliation in case of aggression against Russia or its allies. Peskov added that Russia could strike with nuclear weapons in response to the use of non-nuclear weapons and advised Western states to study the new doctrine carefully. Aggression by any state from the military coalition against Russia or its allies is considered aggression by the coalition as a whole, according to this document. So, what they're saying is if you use these long-range weapons within Russia, you and your allies will all be considered potential targets for Russian nuclear weapons. Okay, an important element of this press release is that nuclear deterrence is aimed at ensuring that a potential adversary understands the inevitability in case of aggression against Russian Federation or its allies. The document is extremely important to analyze. All right. Well, how about that? So why are they saying that? That's kind of interesting. Ukraine has already violated Putin's nuclear doctrine. Ukraine has, for the first time, struck Russian territory with ATACMS missiles. The Ukrainian news and analysis website Censor.net has said. According to the publication, they attacked an arsenal in the Bryansk region. We just covered that. Curiously, the ATACMS strike, which are ballistic missiles, are grounds for retaliatory and nuclear strike, according to Putin's nuclear doctrine, or his new nuclear doctrine, rather. Thus, Putin's doctrine was violated on the very first day it was signed. But that doesn't mean that Dmitry Medvedev won't continue to say things like this. Russia's new nuclear doctrine means NATO missiles fired against our country could be deemed an attack by the bloc on Russia. Russia could retaliate with weapons of mass destruction against Kyiv and key NATO facilities wherever they're located. That means World War III, but it's already been violated, so this is more bluster. For an analogy, let's do this. Let's say that I'm tired of people disagreeing with me, and I say, here's a new rule. This is not true. This is just an example. Here's a new rule for Professor Gerdes Explains channel on YouTube. You will now be banned if you disagree with me in the comment section below. Don't do it. You're going to pay for disagreement. Now, if I were to say that, and I'm not, this is all made up, but if I were to say that, does that make me look stronger or weaker? Because if I say that, I'm saying that because I really don't want you to disagree with me, and right? So it's the same kind of thing. This new doctrine is bluster because they really, really, really don't want these long-range weapons to be able to hit into Russia. They like the fight where there's one arm tied behind Ukraine's back, where all the fighting is done in Ukraine, not in Russia. And so they're scared. Okay, let's make that go away. There's no new rule. Okay, disagree with me all you want. Just be polite. Okay, escalating nuclear use in response to anything happening in Ukraine war does not seem to be credible because it wouldn't help Russia's war aims and could trigger direct military clash with NATO that would be much more costly to Russia, according to one nuclear weapons expert in Radio Free Europe. Okay. Anders Osland was saying the U.S. media posed the wrong question. They asked why Biden allowed Ukraine to use long-distance U.S. ballistic missiles now. The question many of us posed is why the U.S. didn't do that in 2022. The simple but awful answer is that Sullivan did not know what he was doing. Okay, but Jason J. Smart answered, no, Sullivan knew. Like Burns, he knew. All of these imposters of international relations are leading the West to ruin. He knew? Yeah, he knew. Because this, okay, so Newt Gingrich talked about how the system that you have is perfectly geared to give you what you're getting. And they knew what they were doing because they wanted a system where it wasn't geared to helping Ukraine win. It was helping them not be extinguished just enough to not be beaten, and also enough for Russia not to implode, because they don't want Russia to implode either. And so the system that you have is perfectly geared to give you what you're getting. Currently, Russia suffers nearly 1,500 daily casualties in the ongoing war with Ukraine. And every 10 days, their casualties are comparable to what the Soviet Union suffered through in 10 years of war in Afghanistan, according to the foreign minister. Now, you can fact check this. About 15,000 Soviet soldiers had been killed and about 35,000 wounded. So if you just look at the 35,000 wounded, that's 23 days. And if you look at combined, that's 33 days. So he's wrong. It's not 10 days. But at 33 days worth of today's levels of casualties is the equivalent of what happened in 10 years in Afghanistan. Like, that's freaking crazy. But that's where they are. Okay, a couple last things, just some drone warfare to calm me down. I just, again, find this just fascinating, the attacks of drones on drones. And then we're going to end with just two more things. This is Jake Bro is starting another fundraiser. His last two fundraisers in about a week raised $1 million. Absolutely fascinating to watch. Just kicked off, and we'll keep our eyes on what's going on there. And finally, we'll end with Ryan Macbeth talking about 1,000 days and what that means for Ukraine, what that means for Europe, and what that means for
it's been
America.
1,000 days since Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. And I'm here at NATO headquarters in Belgium to kind of get to the bottom of why the U.S. needs to care about this. And here's what I've kind of figured out. Ukrainian security is European security, and European security is American security.
That's right.
As I'm talking, a dragon is rising in the east. China is taking a look at what we're doing in Ukraine, and they will decide their strategy in the Pacific based on that.
And no, here's the thing. The reason that that's important is because, one, there is a lesson to dictators all around the world. But two, the United States' doctrine right now is specifically saying that China is the great threat. And if the great threat can be tamped down by dealing with this threat, this is the way to deal with it. What are we doing saying, no, we can't pay attention to Ukraine because we have to pay attention to China? This is wrong-headed.
A lot of you know I work for a conservative news agency, and I believe in America first. I believe that America will be the first to bomb you if you dare step out of line. America first does not mean America alone.
That's exactly right. I've said that many times. America first doesn't mean America only. America first means we have to prioritize things here, but in prioritizing things here, we have to look at what's going on in the rest of the world. All right, my friends, that's all that I have for this 1,000th day of the war in Ukraine. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes. Thank you for being here. But more than anything, thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.